certainly been making great news. I met with one of my old friends who I went to school with here. He works in Bahrain, and you know, the Bahrain signing of the Abraham Accords Declaration Agreement to normalize relations with Israel represented brave steps towards a secure, stable, and prosperous Middle East. You know, we also applaud Bahrain for their leadership in promoting religious freedom. The agreement signed just days ago with King Hamad Global Center for Peaceful Coexistence is an example to the region and the world on fighting the scourge of anti-Semitism. Teaching our children the value of peaceful coexistence is a noble cause. The United States, we share that with you back in our country. Bahrain has been and continues to be America's important strategic partner here in the Gulf, maintaining stability and also ensuring a free flow of commerce. The United States remains committed to Bahrain's security and to our deep, effective partnerships to counter threats to the region, especially from Iran, the world's top sponsor of terrorism. There's another threat the world is facing, and that is from the Chinese Communist Party. You've seen many examples of the Chinese Communist Party's predatory practices in their one belt, one road rampage across the regions. You know, I've heard many countries call it the one belt, one way toll road to Beijing. The CCP is not interested in partnering with other countries or companies. They just want a win for themselves. And in the area of 5G, the Chinese Communist Party is a serious threat to Bahrain's sovereignty and national security. That's why I'm here, to talk to government officials and business leaders about the importance of securing 5G and trusted networks throughout the country of Bahrain. So the United States, as well as many other nations, have developed the Clean Network. And the Clean Network is a comprehensive approach to dealing with the long-term issues associated with data security, privacy, and trusted collaboration as posed by the Chinese Communist Party. It's rooted in internationally, digitally accepted trust principles. And it's a growing coalition of countries and companies. Now, there are over 40 countries on that network and have joined that network, and roughly about 50 telcos, some of the biggest in the world. You know, for example, all three telcos in Japan, Singapore, Canada, United States, all the telcos in Australia, Taiwan, Vietnam, in Europe, 27 of the 30 NATO countries have a clean network. And you know, one of my discussions, I was in Brussels a few weeks ago, visiting with the Deputy Secretary of NATO, and he said it's very important that we have a clean NATO network because we don't want to have some countries with trusted 5G and some untrusted, because you're only as strong as your weakest link. And in addition to those telcos and those countries, also companies have joined the Clean Network. So ones like Cisco, HP, VMware, Oracle, Telefonica, Fujitsu, NEC, and so many others. It's really growing. It's one of the things, as in my discussions with the different ministries here in Bahrain, I talk about the importance of that for further for further investment, U.S. private sector investment, now European investment in the country of Bahrain, that they want to make sure that it's a trusted 5G networks, and it's a clean country. This is a huge thing. You know, in addition to those 40 yesterday, we actually had a very big day. We've been traveling and moving really fast. We signed MOUs for the clean network with 4 countries yesterday. We went to Bulgaria, North Macedonia. We also signed one with Kosovo and also with Slovakia. So it's got tremendous momentum. I think for the United States State Department, that's a record for in one day. You know, the other thing I want to point out is that that Huawei and ZTE are the backbone for the Chinese Communist Party's surveillance state. They're an arm of the Chinese Communist Party. This is what's used in the west of China, in Xinjiang. This is what's used over in Hong Kong, and all of that. And I think the Clean Network fits well with the Kingdom of Bahrain's vision of a vibrant, forward-looking Middle East. And the Middle East of tomorrow should be built on a trusted 5G network. And I think Bahrain can really lead the way. I'll be going to many other nations in the Middle East on this trip. So once again, thanks for all your time. I appreciate it. And I'm happy to take any questions you might have. Yeah. 5G suppliers is not a technical issue. It's one question. Who do you trust? Because in China, and understand that after being a VP at General Motors, I worked in Silicon Valley for 30 years, building companies, and it's not a technical question at all. It's who do you trust? And in China, they have a law. It's called their National Intelligence Act that requires any Chinese company, state-owned or otherwise, or any Chinese citizen to turn over any information, proprietary technology, intellectual property, or data upon request to the Chinese Communist Party or to the People's Liberation Army. And if you don't, then you have to suffer the consequences. And as you could imagine, they're quite extreme. So this is, I think, one of the biggest issues with regard to 5G, because not only can you get into the citizens' most personal and private information, but it can also, they're able to steal intellectual property of businesses. And then, of course, also in terms of intelligence sharing. Yes, in data centers, if you're using their servers or their clouds, they can do the same thing. The 5G is at hyperscale. And so if you look at the clean network, it's more than 5G. It's also clean cloud, clean underwater cable. You could really, really take it, intelligence hyperspeed, clean apps, clean data centers, clean drones, clean Internet of Things. And this is big. And because they collect all this data, they have many uses for it, but one of them is to collect all this data, like they do in their own country to suppress the people. And it is the backbone for that surveillance state. So, you know, when we talk about the Great China Firewall, I call it the one-way China Firewall, because all the data comes in, but none goes out. And reciprocally, all the propaganda goes out, but the truth does not come in. And they're able to take all that data, put it in their big AI machine, and in China, they crank out one number. It quantifies, and this is, they call it their social credit number. One number that quantifies your loyalty to the party. And if you have a good score, according to them, you get all kinds of favors. Your children get to go to the best schools, et cetera, et cetera. If you don't, the penalties can be extreme, and everything in between. But also what that means is that they can do the same thing to American citizens, to Bahrainian citizens, So that is a big, it's a big threat, in addition to the other things that I talked about. And what they're really trying to do is they're trying to extend that 1984 Orwellian Big Brother state outside of China. The first place I traveled, actually I went to the country of Taiwan to honor the funeral of President Lee. They consider him the founder of their democracy. But then I went over to Europe and went to Luxembourg, Belgium, Estonia, Albania, Spain, Portugal, Austria, and quite a bit of time in Germany. And here's the interesting thing. We actually see it all around the world, too, is that things have changed over the last 6 or 7 months. And the citizens of the world have woken up to the truth about the Chinese Communist Party's, I call it their 3C doctrine of concealment, co-option, and coercion. And citizens of the world understand that the pandemic that affects each and every one of us is a result of the concealment of the virus. And also citizens of the world have seen the co-option of Hong Kong, and breaking that treaty and those security forces marching in has resulted in the evisceration of all of its citizens' freedoms. And then also citizens of the world are understanding that the coercion in Hong Kong have resulted in some of the worst human rights abuses against over 1 million Uyghurs and Muslim groups. And these citizens, they don't like it. And what that's done is it's given the political will to government leaders and to CEOs to stand up to that Chinese Communist Party's practice of intimidation and retaliation. They're bullied. And I can tell you, in the United States, like in Congress, this is the most unifying bipartisan issue of our time. There is no difference between Democrats and Republicans on this issue with regard to the threat of the Chinese Communist Party. And by the way, we love the Chinese people. There's 1.4 billion of them. Only a very small fraction are in that elite Chinese Communist Party. You know, there's over 1.3 billion. So this is what we're seeing around the world. And so, you know, you're seeing these countries signing up very quickly. You're seeing the telcos sign up very quickly. We didn't even ask those other companies. They just said, we really want to be part of that because of these intimidation practices by the country of China. The telcos themselves need cover from the country. And the country itself needs cover from the Clean Network or from NATO or from the EU. The EU developed the Clean EU Toolbox that defines the criteria for a high-risk supplier, like Huawei and ZTE. And they also give guidance on that if you choose a high-risk supplier as a board of director of a telco, and by the way, they have to make the decision, if they choose a high-risk supplier, and when something goes wrong, that they are personally liable. So we're seeing this just sweep across everywhere. And so on this trip, I'm spending time in the Middle East talking to countries, and I think the reception will be very, very good, because I think everybody's realizing the same things what I saw in Europe and also what our teams are seeing all around the world, whether you're in South America, whether you're in Asia, whether you're in Africa, no matter where you are. And by the way, that is the overall purpose of my mission in Bahrain. And as I told the ministry here of Trade and Commerce, that we want to take this great partnership and take it to the next level. So I run economic diplomacy. So what that means is that in the digital area, energy, infrastructure, commerce, the small and medium-sized companies, education, research, we want to take that to the next level and build an integrated plan. And because what I've, coming from the private sector, you have a lot of choices where you're going to expand operations. I said Bahrain is just a great regional hub. I mean, it's just a great place to do business. And so we have that level of a plan, and we're able to target that. And if there's anything I learned in the State Department, you need to write it down and get it down there. Then we'll take it to the next level. And this is why the clean network is so important, because it signals to the U.S. private sector and a lot of other sectors around the world, whether it's Asia or whether it's European, that this is a great place to be, and it's safe. And joining the clean network, it really fits well with Bahrain's vision of the vibrant Middle East. So that's why it's important to Bahrain. So it's actually in all sectors. So definitely in the area of clean energy, definitely in the area of clean infrastructure, as well as traditional energy, obviously. That's for sure. And my assistant Secretary of Energy has spent a lot of time here in Bahrain. So that's for sure. In the innovation sector, that's a huge focus. That's really a big one. Manufacturing also, I think, represents some opportunities in some key areas, because what we don't see is any U.S. companies, now European companies, building any more production capacity in China. And so, matter of fact, we see supply chains being pulled out of there, not just from us, but from Japan, a lot of different places. So I think that represents some great opportunity. And so whether it's the big corporations or whether it's the SMEs, and we had some specific conversations about those SMEs and getting more software labs, incubator labs, to have a vibrant startup community, a venture capital community. So I think looking at that overall, and so that's the purpose of building this network of companies and countries, this coalition. I think that's a critical aspect. Oh, from the money front, yeah. So we just increased our development finance corp from 30 billion to 60 billion. I'm the chairman of that board. I actually brought a COO of USAID, Bonnie Glick here, who's given out billions and billions of dollars through the year. We also reactivated Export-Import Bank. It had sat dormant. So I think there's an opportunity for tremendous investment. So what I say to your ministries is, give us your priority list, and we can put numbers on it, and we ought to be able to finance it.
At the time, these two countries will have FTA. It's a key network. What things we need to do it to continue FTA now, and another things. I don't want to use it like this word, like the United States trying to put Russia in the countries.
The first one is to really share what we've learned, literally over the years. Because in the United States, we really believed that capitalism would equal democracy for China. We thought they would change. We thought that they would play by international rules. U.S. is a country of free traders, but when you have somebody that enters the market and doesn't play by the rules, the market is no longer free. And we also say, look, we enabled China's rise. We let them into the WTO. We did all kinds of things. But now what we say is we have to take off those rose-colored glasses and treat them how they are, not how we'd hope they'd be. So that's really, I think, the first thing. The other aspect of it is that building a coalition of partners, because what China's strategy has been is they've tried to find that weak gazelle from the herd where it's wandered off, and then they go after them and retaliate. So the Clean Network provides a security blanket, a shield for countries and companies. The other thing I would say is that we're not saying, hey, stop the free trade agreement or anything like that. We're certainly not saying that. But what we are saying, it will have a dramatic effect on private sector investment because they understand the importance of it. And that is, that's really relevant to Bahrain. I think it's really relevant to that region. And, we've seen last February, Huawei announced they had 95G contracts around the world. Now, the most we can count outside of China is 12. Their deals have been evaporating. And I think it's really a result of countries and companies really waking up to the truth about what's really going on over there, and that Huawei is an arm of the Chinese Communist Party. I just want to thank you for taking the time to be here, and I just want, I always say sometimes it's important to state the obvious, and I just really appreciate the profession of journalism, because without you guys and your powers of the pen, the truth does not get out. And this story really needs to be written. And I can tell you, one of the countries on our stop, a few days ago, we had a press conference like this, and there was a note or a letter sent to all the journalists there from the Chinese embassy that said, do not write a story about Mr. Krach and what he said. I mean, we were in shock. I can't tell you any more about that, but it was. And by the way, I said the same thing to them. I thanked them at the end. I always do, because these things are really important. And I had never seen anything like that before in my life. And so anyway, I just thank you for your noble profession, your skills in terms of power of pen. I wish I could write like you guys. And most of all, thanks for great Bahrain being such a great friend to the United States. All right. Thank you.